Okay, the table's been drying over the weekend. Stain is good and dry. Now I'm going to seal the stain. I'm going to use the same seal coat as I used before. But this time I'm going to do a little different. I'm going to thin it. Thinning it will help it lay flatter and hopefully avoid any of the fisheye or orange peeling I was getting before. On this one leaf, we're still getting some problems with the fisheye. Going to come back and do a second coat, and hopefully that'll seal that off. Alright, even after that second coat, this one area right here in particular is becoming a real problem. The rest of the table isn't too bad, just a few spots here and there. But this one area right in here is a real problem. As I said, the rest of the table isn't too bad. There's a couple little spots here and there. But I'm going to have to come up with another plan to try to get this sealed off. After giving it some thought, I decided the best approach would be to do some padded shellac. I'm going to spend some time padding some shellac over top of the surface. And this is laying down very, very thin coats of shellac with a pad. The advantage of this is I can put multiple coats down very quickly. It dries very, very quickly. So I can just keep going over and over and over again, building up the finish with just a few minutes in between each coat. And I ended up spending one whole day doing this. Now the pad is made of cheesecloth with a piece of wool inside. And just wrap the cheesecloth around a piece of wool. After doing the padded shellac for one whole day, I was successfully able to bridge over that fisheyeing. Now the next morning I'm doing another scuff sanding and rubbing it out with a maroon pad. And as you can see right here, this is the area that was the trouble spot, and that's been completely bridged over. It should not present any more problems. Now I'm planning on doing 2 top coats of the polycrylic, but as one added step in between, I'm going to do a dust coating of the spray acrylic. It'll help to further seal up the surface and give a nice base coat to the 2 top coats of polycrylic. After an overnight drying, I'm just going to hit it with the gray Scotch pad just to give a little bit of tooth for the first coat of acrylic. Now I'm going to proceed with the 2 top coats of polycrylic and being very careful not to get any drips down inside the rule joint. And after each coat, I'm taking a wet paper towel and going around the bottom to clean up any drips that got down underneath. After getting all the masking off with the base, now I'm just going to do a scuff sanding, a little bit of maroon pad on the legs, a few minor touch-ups, and then do a top coat of acrylic on the base. Alright, I let that harden up good over the weekend. Now quick rub down, first with a maroon pad, the gray Scotch pad, and then some steel wool. Then I'm going to follow that up with the liquid wax. Okay, all done with the waxing. It was just the liquid wax. Apply the liquid wax and then just quick buff it off. It just needs a little more buffing out. Now, I'm a little disappointed. There was a little bit of that orange peeling or fish eyeing showing through again after the second coat. After I did the first coat, I didn't see any of that show through. Then after the second coat, some of that started to show through again. I'm not sure why, but I just let it harden up good over the weekend. Did a light rub out with the maroon pad and the gray pad and then the steel wool. I decided not to do any kind of wet sanding. There was just a few little air bubbles, a few little nits. I didn't see a problem with that, just leaving that alone. And just doing a light rub out. It was quite smooth, but we do have a little bit of that mottled appearance over the whole surface. Almost looks like a sprayed on finish with just a light orange peel. But overall, it looks pretty good. Just a couple little spots where I'm not happy with. But past experience has told me just leave it alone. Don't touch it. If you try to do any kind of corrective action at this point, just going to end up being a big mess. Going to make things worse than it is now. Could potentially go with a third coat. Cut back the second coat, go with a third coat. Then you're adding a few more days onto the project, and could eventually end up being worse than it is now. One of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years is learning when to leave stuff alone, and this is one of those examples. It's not perfect, but a vast improvement over what was here. Trying to go over that old finish just would have been an absolute disaster. This looks 100 times better than it would have looked. One of the pads caused a little scratch right here. So I just removed the wax with some naphtha, put a little spray, and that just completely disappeared. I thought I was going to have to go in and do a little touch-up. That just completely disappeared. And also on that other table over there, there was another little tiny scratch. So I just did the same thing, a little spray. That's the beauty of this satin spray. It blends in perfectly with the acrylic. So I'll just light rub out with some steel wool when that's dry, and then just re-wax it. I haven't done a complete rub out on the wax. I usually wait until it's delivered and do a final buffing. Usually ends up getting all smudged anyway, so you have to kind of wait and do that. And the homeowner usually uses their own furniture polish and just goes over it again. And of course, just did the top. And if you remember, I'd used some masking tape to keep the stripper from getting down the edge here. And this blended in nicely with the edge, and it blended in nicely with the base. Now there are a few problems at the base here. The customer just wanted to leave that alone. Just did a few minor little touch-ups on some of the finish. And then just did a quick top coat and then waxed it. So the color of the top came out nicely, matching with the base here. So this ended up being a pretty big project to do the whole finish on the top here. It was a lot of work, a lot of rubbing, a lot of staining. So it's not perfect. I'd like it to look a little better. But overall, I think it's going to look fine once I get it into some normal lighting. And as I said before, it's a vast improvement over what was here on the top before. So I know one question I'm going to get is the acrylic finish isn't appropriate for an antique, and I agree. I should have just continued with the shellac finish that I was doing. Remember the padded shellac? The only issue is the shellac finish is just too delicate for a dining room table. A shellac finish would be great if the table is not going to get used hard, or going into a museum of some sort, and this is not going into a museum. This is going into a house that's going to get used. So this table is going to get used, things are going to get spilled on it. If you do a shellac finish, it's just too delicate. That would be a guaranteed callback in a few months. There's going to be a ring in it. There's going to be stains. Somebody's going to spill some alcohol, and there'll be a big splotchy area in the middle. So then I'd get a callback, have to bring the whole table back, restrip it, redo it. So with the acrylic finish on there, I know it's not appropriate. Honestly, I don't see much of a difference in the final result. It's going to be much more durable. I don't have to worry about anything getting spilled on it. I've been using that finish for decades, and I've never had a callback on it. Never had any problems with it. All right, time to get it all wrapped up and get it ready to move. One quick tip here. I never put the moving blankets directly over the surface, especially a table. The moving pads can leave marks in the table. And I've even had times in the past where the moving pads will actually stick to the finish. So I put a clean bed sheet over the table first, and then put the moving blanket over that.